Bohemian Rhapsody is it's the Queen biopic, but I think it's kind of like the Queen biopic that you would see on like VH1, or like the one that they would make for like, like a TV movie type of stuff like that. Cause here's the thing, like this Queen biopic, or the Freddie Mercury biopic, however you want to look. It's more Freddie Mercury than anything. But you can kind of look at it as like it's like a movie that just wants to cover like, like the bullet points of Queen as they rose to fame. Almost in kind of like a way that it's almost kind of like a book report, where it's say like, oh, here's this event happened, and then this event happened, and here's how they made this song, and here's what happened to Freddie Mercury. It feels a lot like a book report at times. The way that they the way that they go about telling the story. That being said, first off, yeah, we got to mention, Rami Malek. He plays Freddie Mercury here, and he does a pretty good job. Especially since most of the film is about Freddie Mercury. He's kind of got a little bit of that swagger. He's got a decent voice. He's got a good presence on the screen. How close he is to the actual Freddie Mercury is very much up for debate. I've heard a lot of people go back and forth about how that's not quite the Freddie Mercury that I remember, and that I don't quite believe how he would go about these scenes. But here's the problem though, like we really don't get that deep into Freddie Mercury, because most of the film, it's just kind of like I said, it's just hitting the bullet points. And it doesn't have much time for anything else. Like it says like, here's a scene where Freddie Mercury meets the drummer and the guitarist, who would later be Queen. He joins up, he sings a song, and then bam, they're popular. And then they get a record executive deal, bam. Then Freddie Mercury meets the woman who would be his wife, and they kind of hit it off. But you'll just have to take the movie's word for it that they have chemistry, because they don't have time to show it, because we're too busy getting to the next scene where Queen is already recording their album, and how they have the struggles of the album. Like, hey, did you ever wonder what your favorite songs, how they were made? Well, here's the behind the scenes of that. But there's no time for that either, because we got to get over to the next song, and to the next tour. And we got to get to the next televised event, and over here, and over there, and over here, and over there. And we keep going back and forth so quickly that we really don't have time to take in Freddie Mercury. We barely even have time in this film to take in, like, the Queen's greatest hits, which the film pretty much turns into a lot of times. Like, just when it seems like we're going to get to learn a little bit more about Freddie Mercury, where we're going to actually delve into more of his character, it cuts away to Queen writing another song. And that song building up, but we don't get to hear as much of it, because we quickly cut to either like a tour or a montage, or just like a quick bit from like one of their sets, and then we're back to a little bit of like the Freddie Mercury drama, and then back and forth, and keeps going on and going on. And there's just something so frustrating about that you kind of want the film to slow down at times, because it seems like it's rushing through all of this. And the film it's 2.5 hours, and it still feels like it hasn't covered everything that you'd want to be covered in this film. Especially with the way a lot of like the scenes are staged and written. They seem to almost be playing up for like sentimentality a lot of times. There are several moments where the dialogue it's you've heard that dialogue in the trailer. All the dialogue they speak in there is in the film, and I'm listening to it all thinking, this feels more like talk that you would have in a trailer for like a standard biopic. It doesn't feel like it's touching on anything bigger here. It always feels like the film is always held back in this aspect. Like it's fearful about whether or not to go more forward with telling the story of Queen and telling the story of Freddie Mercury. Like it's tiptoeing around certain aspects that it really wouldn't rather comment on. But in doing so, I think the film actually misses a chance to actually say something. Because it feels like the film doesn't really want to say anything. It just wants to, hey, like, oh, I guess this stuff happened with Freddie Mercury. And then, like, oh, here's some of Queen's greatest hits. Here, eat them up, everyone. To the point where when they get to the Live Aid segment, you just get to see Rami Malek just straight up perform, all of Live Aid right there with the Queen songs. Which, to be fair, yeah, sure, it's a good move. It's a pleasing concert. It's got some neat shots in there. It's got some great performances. It definitely has a stage presence. You can definitely tell they spent all their money in the special effects in this area, because you get these huge crowd shots and the camera's zooming and going all over the place and zipping around the crowd and everything, and going in and out of like the instruments and the and everyone on stage, and it's just it's a flashy segment. But it's a flashy segment that comes after so much other kind of flashy segments with Queen that it kind of doesn't feel earned. It just kind of feels like look, we've got Rami Malek. We might as well, give people a lot of money shots of him performing Queen. So that's what the film does. But unfortunately, it feels like the film, like I said, it's fearful about how much it wants to cover of Freddie Mercury, to the point that it does a lot more telling than showing. There are several points where we have to be told what's going on rather than kind of see it. Like they say, like, oh, Freddie, he's got 2 singles coming out, and he's working himself to the bone. He's burning the candle at both ends. He's going too fast. He's going to exhaust himself. But we don't see that. We just hear people talking about it. And we can kind of see, like, bits and pieces of it around Freddie's estate, but it's ultimately just people saying, "Oh, Freddie's going too fast," and that's about it. That's about all that it has to offer in that aspect. So I kept thinking, like, well, how, like who's this movie for? For people who are already aware of Queen and the story of Freddie Mercury, they're gonna go into this looking like, yeah, that's kind of the story. And would you like to say anything about it? Is there anything more you would wish to add? Because it's 2.5 hours, and it doesn't feel like you're saying much of anything here. I gotta mention this. I kept thinking, I've heard some people say this in reviews too, that they think the film is kind of like a version of filmmaking that people have been calling like dad rock, where it's just kind of like it's very like timidly addressing this rock history without saying much about it. And I can't help but feel that, yeah, this is kind of for that audience too, for like the audience who's just kind of only known Queen through the radio and doesn't really know much of their history. And I kept thinking it had to have been, because here's the interesting thing. I'm going to tell like a story out of school here. Okay, so when we went to the press screening for this, the marketing rep came up and said, like, look, this film's going to be coming out next week, but if you write reviews about it or you post about it on social media, don't spoil it. Don't spoil anything about it until the embargo is lifted, and so everyone has a chance to see it. But it's like spoiler reviews, really, for the Queen biopic here? And I kept thinking, well, why? How could you spoil it here? And then it kind of hit me. It kind of hit me with the audience reaction, because when we first get to the scene where Freddie Mercury is addressing his bisexuality, where his manager ends up kissing him in one scene, we could hear this old guy behind us in the theater. He just started like visibly groaning, like he was repulsed by the scene of Freddie Mercury kissing a dude. Just like, oh, and he did this for like 1 or 2 minutes, to the point where people were saying, like, dude, shut the hell up. And he wouldn't stop too. Like every time after that, whenever Freddie Mercury would kiss a dude, he kept retching. He kept. I think eventually, like, someone said, like, "Oh, throw the guy out." I don't know if they did. I think they did. But I kept thinking, well, maybe this is who the film is for. Don't reveal any spoilers. Which, in that case, I think I wrote this in my review too. Belated spoiler warning: Freddie Mercury kisses dudes. So I guess there's your spoiler for the film there. But ultimately, I just felt kind of let down from the film, because it felt like it was trying to do, like Freddie Mercury, it feels like it's trying to do too much, and ultimately ends up really doing nothing, because you don't, outside of the basic facts of of Queen and Freddie Mercury, it doesn't add anything. And the other thing too is, I got to mention this as well, the tone feels really off in this film. It never feels like the drama. Like I said, the drama feels like sentimentality, and then there are several bits where they're trying to be funny. And there's one bit in here that I swear to God that this must be like a bit that it feels like a bit they would have done on Saturday Night Live. Okay, so there's a scene where they're talking to a record executive, and the record executive is played by Mike Myers. And Mike Myers tells the boys, after hearing Bohemian Rhapsody, saying, "Look, guys, we want a song that teenagers will headbang in their car to. Bohemian Rhapsody will never be that song." You get it? You get it? Because that's what they did in Wayne's World, because Mike Myers was in Wayne's World, and he had Queen on the radio, and he was said, but yeah, we get it. There's a few little foreshadowing nods like that in the script there. That just feels like, it just feels like it's just trying to be an audience pleaser most of the time. That's all it really feels like. Like it's trying too hard to please everyone in the audience who came in looking for the Queen film, who kind of only know them a little bit through their music. And it sucks, because then it doesn't really say anything, and all you've really got is some decent performances by some of the cast, but mostly it's Rami Malek's film, and Rami Malek he does a great job as Freddie Mercury. I got to give him that. But other than that, unless you just like hearing Queen's greatest hits and then Rami Malek performing them, there's nothing here. There's nothing else to add here. So it's just kind of like a timid best of album. So for that, Bohemian Rhapsody gets 2 stars.